The cost of disasters worldwide has reached an average of $250 billion to $300 billion every year. That's according to the Global Assessment Report on Disaster Risk Reduction, which has been released by the United Nations. It urges countries to increase their commitments to strengthen their population's resilience. The report produced by the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction stresses that the economic losses caused by disasters are also hindering countries' paths to achieve sustainable development, making risk reduction central to social, economic, and environmental progress. In many countries, climate change is magnifying risk and increasing the cost of disasters. In the Caribbean, for example, the average annual losses associated with tropical cyclone winds alone are projected to increase by as much as $1.4 billion by the year 2015. For small island developing states like St. Lucia, expected future disaster losses are not just disproportionately high, they represent an existential threat. These countries are expected to lose 20 times more of their capital stock each year compared to Europe and Central Asia. Meantime, droughts caused by climate change are affecting maize production in countries such as Kenya, Malawi, and Nigeria, whose gross domestic product largely depends on agriculture. And now here's Dennis Springer with more in the CTV Environmental Watch.
Over the last week, in looking at the effects of global warming and climate change, I chose to look at drought for a special reason, in that governments in the Caribbean have mitigating measures for other natural disasters, but none that I know of that deals with drought, more so a severe drought. Another reason for choosing drought is because we may be heading into a serious drought situation without realizing it. I mentioned before the 5-year cycle. Looking back to the drought of 2005, which had a devastating effect not only in America but also in the Caribbean. We saw another drought crisis in 2010, which gave me cause for concern about the 5-year cycle because we are now in 2015 and it was another year of creeping drought. So our government and water agencies must put measures in place to mitigate the effect of another bout of drought. Drought, as I have mentioned, has a serious implication on those who have to undergo a severe bout of drought. It can have economic, environmental, and social impacts, especially on health. And again, it can have political impacts. Tonight, I want to concentrate on the economic impacts that cost farmers or businesses money. Farmers may lose money if a drought destroys their crops, obviously, on which their livelihood depends because they expect to make a profit. Remember, it is an investment they are making to reap some rewards. If a farmer's water supply is too low or disrupted, the farmer may have to spend more money on irrigation. He will also have to spend more money on feed and water for animals. He may need to bring in or truck in water from the suppliers to his farm. One of the major effects is that drought dries sources of drinking water and thereby puts a strain on everyone in the community. People get into a bad mood because they have not cleaned their teeth or had a proper wash, etc. It is also costly for the supplier, as in the case of Wasco, the water authority in St. Lucia, who has to spend money trucking water to vulnerable areas. And lastly, people have to pay more for food because in a St. Lucian scenario, food will have to be imported, which always costs more money. So on Wednesday, we will be looking at the social impacts and hope that you will tune in because of the importance of this new segment on drought.